In a lot of ways, the Flintstones was a million years ahead of its time.
We could see ourselves through that show.
The Flintstones were really hip.
Of course, the humor will always hold up.
Primitive behavior never goes out of style.
When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time, a dabba do time, we'll have a gay old time. Yabba dabba do!
The Flintstones have lasted for a lot of different reasons.
It was truly a very warm show.
I always felt that one of the enduring qualities of the Flintstones was Fred himself.
La 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 la. Oh, you are in good voice this morning, sir.
A lead character who was lovable and likable enough that you cared about what happened to him.
You're jealous, thoughtless, loudmouthed, overbearing, and possessive. You forgot quick-tempered.
It seemed to me that every one of us knew Fred. He was our dad, our uncle, our next-door neighbor, a guy down the block, but everybody knew a person like Fred Flintstone.
The Flintstones, being in its fourth season, had already outlasted all the other primetime cartoon shows created specifically for TV.
The Flintstones and ABC were really a match made in heaven. At the time, ABC was the primary network for the young people in America.
When the Flintstone show aired on Fridays, originally it aired later at 8:30. When they moved it to Thursdays, it was airing at 7:30 to catch more of the young audience that probably was out on dates and stuff. The Flintstones is generally acknowledged as the first primetime cartoon series.
Up until then, pretty much cartoons had followed the 7-minute formula. They were shorts that mimicked the shorts that came before theatrical films. The Flintstones really worked in the half-hour primetime formula.
And I think that was the thing that put it ahead of time, because as you can see, now we're still doing cartoon shows like that with even more involved structure.
Hey, what's going on over there?
Everyone in the country knew about it. The merchandising was all in place. The toy lines were there.
The first wave of merchandise was mostly print material. The next wave of stuff were stuffed dolls. In the fourth season, Hanna-Barbera had actually gone so far as to reanimate the main titles of the show to include a scene of Pebbles Flintstone playing with a set of building boulders. There was actually originally plans to give the Flintstones a son. So here's their son here, Fred Jr.
By the fourth season, that was really the height of Flintstonia mania. It really hit its stride. The characters were now locked down.
We realized that we do have a hit on our hands, and we've got to keep the show fresh. You know, we were burdened with trying to come up with a good continuing show.
The fourth season of the Flintstones introduced Bam Bam Rubble.
That's no kitten. A baby.
Bam Bam was designed by a fellow named Gene Hazelton, and they actually brought him in because one of his specialties was designing cute kids. The inclusion of Bam Bam to the Flintstones is significant in a number of ways. First of all, of course, Bam Bam's adopted.
Since you want to keep Bam Bam, you should adopt him legally, Betty. Oh, we are.
Because I remember, even now, watching that first Bam Bam show, that the whole thing with Betty and Barney wishing they had a baby and being kind of jealous of Fred and Wilma was really, at the time, surprisingly emotional.
We're so anxious to have a baby, we take it out on Fred and Wilma.
But I think it's moments like that in the Flintstones in general that give them a believability and make people really, really love the characters. If you know the history of Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera, their first cartoon series for television was a series called Rough and Ready. Rough and Ready were a dog and a cat, and they'd go off and have adventures all over the world. And in the middle of the adventure, they meet a little cave boy named Ubble Ubble. And obviously they hadn't forgotten about Ubble Ubble because Bam Bam's just a more appealing version of Ubble Ubble. The fourth season of the Flintstones ups the ante in terms of using actors and personalities. The standout one that everyone remembers is when Anne Margaret did voiceover for a character based on her called Anne Margrock.
As far as designing Anne Margrock, during that period, Dick Bickenbach was sort of overseeing the layout department. Later, Iwao Takamoto became very instrumental in designing a lot of the characters.
I remember Iwo designing her for that episode, and I think you also designed this cute little turtle shell car that she drove around in.
Just my luck. A flat tire.
Joe loved parodies of real-life characters and all that.
The name's Zanrock. Daryl Zanrock. I'm with 20 millionth Century Fox.
It seemed like every other show was a parody of some TV show or character.
People watching the show could actually relate to what was happening on that television screen, to experiences that were very familiar to themselves.
There was definitely a feeling that more and more that Bedrock was a direct analog of whatever was going on in America.
I figured we could take a little trip to Rock Vegas.
I think there was a number of people who contributed to the look of the Flintstones.
The show begins with a verbal idea. We really would go to Joe with nothing written down. Nothing at all, just an idea. Joe would add jokes. He knew every old joke there ever was. If it got a laugh, that's all that matters. I don't recall a lot of talk about story structure and motivation and any of those classical critiques. It didn't happen. It was, is it funny? And can we get it out?
Everything had to be done quickly. You know, Bill Hanna always had a pretty tight schedule and budget.
Bill Hanna and Joe Barbera found an easy way to animate by eliminating most of the drawings.
This process saved a lot of money for the producing company. They would separate the head from the body with the use of either a collar or a necktie.
That saved a lot of drawing. And when they walked, everything was held except the feet.
The heads would like bob, the eyes would blink.
And the backgrounds would just repeat themselves. They'd run it and then they'd run it again.
People really didn't even think about how cartoons were made.
Animation was still somewhat of a partial mystery to the public in general.
The respect for us toiling over our desk in animation studios were lacking a little bit of respect, you might say.
Today, animators are enjoying a much greater degree of respect.
The number one question I receive these days is, oh, well, you do it all with computers, don't you? And of course, that's not the case. Even when it is computer animated, it all starts out with your brain, your hand, and a pencil. And that's the way cartoons will always be made.
Animated shows today owe an awful lot to the Flintstones.
The Flintstones have left a legacy. They had an unmistakable style.
It really was the first time that everybody could admit that cartoons were for everybody.
Now you have shows, animated shows, that have the similar kind of loyalty to them. In that way, the Flintstones kind of set us on the trend that we're on now.
When you're with the Flintstones, have a yabba dabba do time, a dabba do time.